The interpretation of narratives is to some extent subjective because everyone can experience art differently. At the same time, using literary analysis, we can still explain the most reasonable meanings that the artist meant to convey or that the audience is likely to understand. To understand themes of any work of art, however, spoilers are involved. Heavy spoilers. So consider this your spoiler warning. Tactical Breach Wizards, the turn-based tactics puzzle game by Suspicious Developments, is a game that focuses heavily on its tactical combat. Even so, the game integrates a tightly executed and well-written narrative that conveys many themes. In this video, we are going to answer the question, what can a team of Tactical Breach Wizards show us about mental health and morality? The first theme the Breach Wizards demonstrate is that of struggling with their own self-worth or inadequacy. The PI wizard Jen struggles with insecurity and feeling valued, as demonstrated in her anxiety dream. In her dream, the fourth wall is broken in order to help her build her sense of self-worth, but even that doesn't seem to help very much. She continues throughout the game to struggle with this in different ways, including in her rivalry with Steve Clark and in her lack of confidence in her leadership abilities. The other main protagonist, Zan, also struggles with his sense of self-worth, particularly in his failures with the Druid Mafia. At the beginning of the game, he feels guilt that he failed in saving his team leader Liv. Later on, however, he finds out that actually, not only did he not save Liv, he didn't accomplish their mission in saving the kid either. This makes Zan doubt himself even more, realizing that he froze up at one of the most critical moments in his career. As a result, he worries that something similar could happen again. The constant rivalry between the Reactor team and Zan's team also suggests that there is a lot of unhealthy insecurity on the Reactor team as well. Steve Clark is constantly trying to one-up Jen and seems to be very sensitive towards any suggestion that he is not a strong wizard. Bori Kesh, while a generally polite pyromancer, also seems sensitive about his own powers, reacting strongly to any suggestion that his fire is not that lethal. Liv Kennedy, at first glance, seems to be the opposite, constantly suggesting that she is the best and has no doubts. And while this seems to be generally true, Jen points out that it was actually Liv's failure as team leader even more than it was Zan's, as far as why the mission failed in the Jodasa incident. It's possible that Liv's bravado is covering up her insecurities with her declining powers. In the Bible, the Psalms also discuss the idea of self-worth. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eye saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. Psalm 139, verses 13 to 16. The psalmist suggests that he has self-worth because his creator is God and that God carefully planned his life. Focusing on God instead of on accomplishments or failures as the foundation of self-esteem would probably help the Breach Wizards have better mental health. A second mental health theme that the Tactical Breach Wizards highlighted in the game is that of the need for friendship. Tessa Banks is portrayed as a cool and collected surgeon who seems primarily motivated by money. But in her anxiety dream, her younger 27-year-old self wants to know if she has friends or romantic relationships, indicating that she doesn't actually want to be alone. Similarly, Rion seems like a cold, ruthless assassin for the Mafia, one who has no loyalties and needs no friends, only money. However, later on it is revealed that Rion started out as a dog. It is implied that Rion was actually a loyal pet and companion who needs friends, but once he awakened his wizard powers, his human alter ego rejects friendship to protect him after his human owner abused him. Thus, even with all his verbal rejections about how he has no friends and is not on their team, he is still on their team. Jen and Zan have the deepest friendship in the game. Over and over, they help each other out. Jen trusts Zan and starts to help him on his highly dangerous mission to stop Liv with little regard for her own life. She even shows up in his anxiety dream to help him out. Zan gives Jen his dog tags, which as a vessel of his magic, give her a lesser version of his foresight. Near the end of the game, Zan is also able to access some of Jen's power as well. This is contrasted with Liv, who claims she needs no one and uses up her allies until she is eventually alone. The Book of Proverbs has much wisdom about friendship. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. Proverbs 27, verses 6, 9, and 17. The author suggests that even painful truths from a friend should be listened to, and that people need pleasant friends with good advice, because friends make each other stronger. While Liv was defeated because she was alone, Zan, Jen, Banks, Dahl, and Rion all need friendship, and their teamwork throughout the game shows how friendship makes their mental health stronger. However, not all things make mental health better. A third theme in Tactical Breach Wizards is about how vengeance makes mental health worse. Dahl is driven by both a desire for freedom in Colin, as well as a hatred for the chapel for what they did to her friend Jidan. While many of the things she does are noble and selfless, her anxiety dream exposes the unhealthiness of her obsession with the chapel. She questions whether it is healthy to hold on so tightly, and wonders if one reason she is obsessed is because she is afraid her memory of Jidan will only live through her vengeance. Similarly, Banks is also driven by the desire for revenge on Liv, who captured Banks and forced her to use her powers of resurrection to keep undoing the side effects of using mana. When Banks is eventually freed by Zan and Jen, she lets them know that she will help them with anything that they need, but her ultimate goal is to kill Liv. When the team finally defeats Liv, Banks does kill Liv and gets her revenge. The team asks Banks to revive Liv, but she doesn't really want to. Dahl explains to Banks how it is understandable to desire vengeance, especially if the feeling of vengeance replaces the sense of powerlessness. However, Dahl also points out that Banks has already gotten her vengeance, and she has the power to undo her vengeance, which will be healthier for Banks herself in the long run. Banks doesn't necessarily agree with that perspective, but she relents and revives Liv so that she can be arrested and tried. The Bible also talks about vengeance, including hating others. You shall not hate your brother in your heart, but you shall reason frankly with your neighbor, lest you incur sin because of him. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the sons of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. Leviticus chapter 19, verses 17 to 18. While God doesn't specifically state that it is unhealthy, it's clear that God cares not only about the action of vengeance, but the bitterness within, saying that it is sinful and immoral. Many of the Breach Wizards all seem to want vengeance, which God calls sin, but they are the protagonists and the good guys, which raises the question of what it is that the bad guys do that makes them bad. The last and perhaps most important theme in the game is that of the evil of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is when a person claims to have higher moral standards than they actually have, or claims to believe in higher moral standards than they actually do. This concept is actually referenced early on when discussing whether the good guys are hypocrites about violence. Interestingly, some of the characters are sort of the opposite of hypocrisy in that they claim to have lower moral standards than they actually do. Both the teammates Banks and Rion are like that, claiming to be very mercenary in nature, but secretly caring about people. Rion claims to only care about money and revenge and that he does not fight for loyalty or morality, but we see that this is not exactly true. In the epilogue, Rion decides to assassinate either the billionaire owner of Reactor or the first chaplain for the challenge. But we see that this is a vigilante-type perspective and contains some moral restraints, even if the overall moral compass is not the best. Banks also claims to only want to revive people for money and charges exuberant amounts of money for her services. She also claims that she is fighting for revenge. However, from her anxiety dream, we know that she actually hates not finishing a surgery or resurrection, and she actually postpones her retirement because she wanted to save as many patients as she could. This is heavily contrasted with the actual hypocrites in the game. The chapel is a theocracy who pretends to lead Colin in their religion of Chorism, but the leaders of the chapel don't actually believe in many of the teachings or tenets of Chorism, but instead use the religion as an excuse for power. This is revealed in the video that Dahl broadcasts for Colin and is the primary example of hypocrisy. Reactor 2 is an organization based on hypocrisy. Near the end of the game, Zan and Liv discuss why Reactor is choosing to invade Metal. Liv claims that they are seizing mana with the pretext that it is needed in order to protect the mana from evil forces, but they are the evil forces. When Zan's team wants to destroy the mana, which would solve the problem, Liv's group still wants to seize the mana, exposing their hypocrisy. In the Bible, Jesus accuses the Pharisees of hypocrisy regularly, even telling parables about their hypocrisy. What do you think? A man had 2 sons, and he went to the first and said, "Son, go and work in the vineyard today." And he answered, "I will not," but afterward changed his mind and went. And he went to the other son and said the same. And he answered, "I go, sir," but did not go. Which of the 2 did the will of his father? They said, "The first." Jesus said to them, "Truly I say to you, the tax collectors and the prostitutes go into the kingdom before you. For John came to you in the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him. But the tax collectors and the prostitutes believed him. And even when you saw it, you did not afterward change your minds and believe him." Matthew chapter 21, verses 28 to 32. Like in Jesus' parable, Banks and Rion are like the first son, who seem unwilling but in the end do the right thing, whereas the Chapel and Reactor are the hypocrites, who claim to be doing good but are actually doing evil, which seems to be the main moral evil in the game. Tactical Breach Wizards is a game that contains themes of self-worth, the need for friendship, revenge, and hypocrisy. All of these ideas are well developed, and that really made me think about the story and made Tactical Breach Wizards stand out from other tactics games. That's all I have for you in this video. Bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If this video blessed you in some way, please consider watching some of my other videos, subscribing, or sharing with me some of your thoughts in the comments below.